Focusing now on some of the mid-table battlers, that group of teams who may not qualify for Europe, but should be well clear of relegation trouble. Let's get into this now. I want to focus on some teams who are pretty fun to watch. Nick, I'm going to come to you. Aston Villa, Steven Gerrard. We love a bit of Stevie G here at PST. They've had some big signings early in the summer at centre-back, in central midfield as well. He's very demanding as a manager, so it's going to be interesting to see how they come out of a Steven Gerrard pre-season. I'd imagine very, very fit indeed. But what is a good season for Aston Villa, given that he kept them up very comfortably last year, but their season fizzled out a little bit, right? So I don't really know what the ceiling is for this Villa team.
Yeah, I think part of that is a little bit of emotional burnout. They had to rebound from a manager that they very much liked, and then they got this guy to come in, an England legend who obviously lit a fire underneath them. But after some time, I think you kind of fizzle, and you look around and you say, look, we want to play well, and we want to keep racing up towards the top of the table, but we're not going to catch there, and we're not going to get there. I think they needed a hard reset. They needed the summer off. The question for me is, with as many talented scorers as they have, or playmakers as they have, can they get enough scoring done? And can they get it out of Ollie Watkins? Can they get it out of these guys who are tasked with putting the ball in the back of the net? Because otherwise, I think Aston Villa have all the ingredients to move forward. I did think it was a kind of weird to see Tyrone Mings lose his captaincy. He played it off a little bit, basically saying that everybody agrees that John McGinn is an excellent leader. But they do have a number of players who I think sit on maybe the precipice or the tipping point, and they can either be very good players or they can hinge and move a little bit closer towards great. If a couple of those swing towards great, then I think Villa is talking about being a top 6 competitor. On the outskirts, again, I don't think they'll get there. I think the big 6 are all ahead of them, but it just takes a couple funny bounces or an injury somewhere else to put Villa right in that discussion.
One thing about Villa, I think the World Cup impacts them positively more than maybe any other team in the Premier League, because you have Ollie Watkins, you have Coutinho, Danny Ings, Tyrone Mings, a lot of players there who are battling to play or be in the squad for their nations at the World Cup. So keep an eye out for that with Aston Villa, but I think they should be comfortable mid-table, and will be really close, I think, to pushing into the European spots if they start well and build up some positive vibes under Gerrard. Andy, Brentford, I know that's a club close to your heart as well. Some smart signings this offseason. Aaron Hickey coming in, Ben Mee, Keane Lewis-Potter, that same model of young players proving themselves, and then a bit of experience with Mee as well, just to help them out defensively. Do we worry about Brentford after losing Christian Eriksen? They were so good in the second half of last season after that wobble in the middle. Could they get sucked into a relegation battle, or do you think they'll be sitting pretty in mid-table?
Nope. I think they'll be just fine. Had they not had half the starting lineup out for 3 months midway through the season last season, they would have been very comfortable in mid-table for the entirety of the season. They might have been pushing top 7 or top 8. I think just given the start that they had and the quality, it's such a transferable style, the way that they play coming up from the Championship to the Premier League. It gives teams fits. We saw what they did to Arsenal on the opening day of the season. They did it to a number of the Big 6 teams over the course of the year. Now, maybe they lost some of those games, but they were one of the toughest opponents. And I think there were a handful of managers around the Premier League that gave quotes something to that effect, that we could not believe how difficult they were to play against. I think Ivan Toney had such a comeback down year because I think so much focus was on him last year. I think he'll probably bounce back a little bit. But the name that I'm really keeping an eye on, because of the way he finished last season, the way he's looked in preseason this year, and he's just now aging into being 22, 23 years old, is Brian Mbeumo. He has been a really dynamic kind of second attacker playing off of Toney. Their combination play after 2 or 3 years together now is really, really good. There's just so much to like about what Thomas Frank has done. And I think it's one of those systems where you can just about plug in anyone. It doesn't matter how much quality you drop. I think that they can steady the ship in most cases without too many injuries all hitting at once.
And Brentford are an easy team to root for, right? Lovely stadium, great story, good set of players, and a good manager as well. Got a clear philosophy and just a culture as a club. It's a great story to see them. I mean, the second season syndrome, I think a lot of people are going to be talking about that, right? Had they been figured out? But like you said, Andy, they missed a lot of big players, goalkeeper David Raya being out, and some of their key defensive players for big parts of last season. I think they'll be just fine. Nick, Crystal Palace. We love Patrick Vieira. What a great manager. What a great first season he had at Selhurst Park. But not a great pre-season, generally. I mean, they were impacted by players not being allowed to travel to Australia because of travel requirement issues. Chris Richards, though, we are excited about that. Him coming in for the Eagles, having an American on the books there in South London. What do we expect from Palace this season? Because it will be tough to match what they did, but lovely style of play, had a great run in the FA Cup, and were never really in any relegation trouble at all last season. So more of the same from Vieira?
A little bit. This may look a little bit like a Palace of about 3 years ago. They've refreshed, obviously, the squad, going back to 2 years ago. Last summer at this time, we're talking about them having like 4 guys on the roster, something crazy small number like that. I think this will be a little bit more of a defensive side. They bring in Doucouré. They spent a lot of money on him. They bring in Richards. Gueye, he's been very good. But there's one name missing, right? And that's their star last year who came on loan. And that's something that we'll be monitoring for some time. Is this something that they can trigger forward and find that playmaker, find that electric piece? Because Conor Gallagher was exceptional last season.
Oh, good.
He really captured our imaginations. Everything that we thought Billy Gilmore might be able to do at Norwich. Obviously, they're not the exact same player, but Gallagher did as the lone star for Palace.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they fill that considerable void of Conor Gallagher being back at Chelsea. Wolves, rounding up the teams on the mid-table battlers here, who knows with them? I really have no idea. They finished last season so poorly. Don't score a lot of goals under Bruno Lage. And Raul Jimenez is hurt at the start of the season as well. He went down in pre-season with a couple of different injuries. So he's going to miss the opening month, it looks like. They're tough to break down, but they have to score more. They have to have more production. And I think there's just kind of a bit of a negativity around Wolves after that incredible rise up to the Premier League, in the Europa League. And then they had a great start to last season, right? After a bit of a slow start, they played well, got some great results, and then it just fizzled out. And I do worry about them a little bit. I feel like Bruno Lage, if they have a poor start to the season, I think the fans could turn on him quite quickly at Wolves because they're not impressed with the style of play. And it wasn't always the best under Nuno Espirito Santo, but they were winning a lot of games, and that papers over a lot of cracks. But Andy, anything on Wolves that we should be looking for this season?
No, I'll just be very quick and say there could be some regression coming. They conceded 43 goals last season. It's a pretty good defensive record for a season. Their expected goals against was over 60, though. And so if you outperform by that much, it feels like there's regression coming. And so they're going to have to counterbalance that with more goals scored at one end, which maybe they'll do, but I don't know who like the second true attacker is playing off of Raul Jimenez.
Yeah, true. Podence, there's a few players there, but no one that really stands out. And I think obviously Jose Sarr had a wonderful season. That's why those stats show that he saved so many clear opportunities, and they're going to need him to do that again, I think, to be in mid-table and away from any kind of relegation trouble. But here at PST, we'll keep you updated on all the latest news from those teams in the middle of the pack, team news, how to watch information all season long. We'll keep you covered on every single one of their games. We'll be keeping a close eye on them because we're not quite sure what's going to happen with some of those teams we've just mentioned there.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.